The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, December 12th, 2025. Your reader for this hour is Chet Walczyk. We'll kick it off with the weekend edition here and a couple of their feature cover stories. Poll finds inflation is taking a heavy toll. Dateline, Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania. As President Trump touts a rebounding economy and downplays affordability concerns, new polling suggests most Americans are not seeing the improvements, and some are making significant sacrifices to save money. Findings in a poll released December 11th from the progressive think tank, the Century Foundation, shared exclusively with USA Today, show rising costs are taking a heavy toll on the American family, with the working class bearing the brunt of what the group calls an affordability crisis. Nearly 3 in 10 of voters polled said they held off getting medical care over the past year because of cost. 1/3 said they have skipped a meal. 2/3 of respondents said they are buying cheaper groceries or buying less food, while half said they dipped into savings to cover basic expenses. Cost of living hardships are felt most acutely by Americans without college degrees, young Americans, people of color, and women, according to the poll. Less than a year from the 2026 midterm elections, the Century Foundation has briefed several Democrats in Congress on the poll results to counter Trump's assertions that affordability concerns amplified by Democrats are a con job and a Democrat scam. Trump has blamed former President Biden for Americans' affordability challenges, emphasizing costs are down from the post-pandemic high under his predecessor. This week, Trump claimed inflation is essentially gone and graded the U.S. economy an A++++, as the White House argues an even stronger economy will emerge in 2026. Yet, year-over-year inflation remains above pre-pandemic levels, and the poll found 2/3 of Americans believe the economy is not doing well. That includes 43% of Americans who voted for Trump in the 2025 election. I think that was the 24 election. But people are telling us in all kinds of ways the financial pain they're feeling in their lives, said Angela Hanks, Director of Policy Programs at the Century Foundation, a liberal think tank. You can downplay it, but it doesn't change how people are experiencing the economy. The poll, a survey of 1,425 registered voters taken by the Democratic polling firm GQR from October 14th to the 24th, does not have comparison data from previous years to evaluate the affordability challenges today versus the Biden presidency. Democrats have used affordability as their underlying campaign message en route to overperforming in elections across the country and producing double-digit wins in the off-year gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. Democrats are set to double down on affordability in the 2026 midterms when they hope to regain control of the House and Senate during Trump's final 2 years in the White House. Marking a return to the road, Trump traveled to Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania on December 9th to launch a tour designed to address the economic concerns of everyday Americans. In a 95-minute speech inside a casino ballroom, Trump unleashed a greatest hits of attacks and grievances while insisting prices are on the decline. He mocked affordability as a campaign issue manufactured by Democrats who, he said, were responsible for prices spiking under Biden. They have a new word. You know, they always have a hoax. The new word is affordability. So they look at the camera and say, "This election is all about affordability," Trump said. I cannot say affordability hoax because I agree. The prices were too high, Trump later added. So I can't go to hoax because they'll misconstrue that. But they use the word affordability, and that's their only word. They say affordability, and everyone says, oh, that must mean Trump has high prices. No, our prices are coming down tremendously. The Century Foundation poll, however, suggests many Americans are facing a much bleaker economic picture. 29% of registered voters said they delayed or skipped medical care over the past year, including 49% of voters under 30 years old, 37% of Hispanics, and 32% of black voters. 24% said they delayed or skipped buying medicine prescribed by their doctor. 64% of poll respondents said they switched to cheaper groceries or cut back on groceries, including 79% of voters under 30 years old. 34% of registered voters said they skipped a meal to save money. 48% of poll respondents said they tapped into savings to meet daily expenses. Americans are also not as optimistic as the president about the situation improving, according to the poll, with 82% of Americans expecting prices to increase over the next year. The poll was taken before the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline in December dropped below $3 for the first time in 4 years. Melissa Halstead, a Trump supporter from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, who watched the president's speech, called Trump one of the best presidents we have ever had and applauded the dip in gas prices. Yet, even this Trump loyalist added, it would be nice if house prices would come down, if interest would come down a little bit. The cost of living here is just astronomical. Keith Transu, a 51-year-old owner of a trucking and logistics company from Mount Pocono, said he is encouraged by cheaper gas prices at the pump and believes costs are no longer going up exponentially like previously. Still, he said expenses remain on the rise. I don't think it's halted. I think it's slow, Transu said shortly before Trump began his speech. Trump defeated Democratic nominee Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election after campaigning on lowering prices immediately. Yet, he struggled to deliver on that promise, and his sweeping tariffs on imports and refusal to support extending expiring Obamacare subsidies have given Democrats ammunition to blame hardening costs on the president's policies. This evidence suggests the real con job was Donald Trump's promise to lower costs on day one, said Senator Elizabeth Warren. Working people are skipping meals, delaying medical care, and falling behind on their utility bills, while Trump focuses on building a golden ballroom for himself and his corporate donors. She said. In response to the poll's findings, White House spokesman Kush Desai told USA Today, President Trump and every member of his administration fully recognize how Joe Biden's generational inflation crisis left American families behind. Turning the page on the Biden disaster has been a day one priority for the Trump administration. Working class voters without college degrees, a demographic that has long formed Trump's political base, are most likely to feel affordable strains, according to the poll. They were more likely than college-educated workers to say they had skipped a meal, held off medical care, skipped buying medication, and tapped into savings. As a result, working-class voters are more likely than college-educated voters to opt for risky buy now, pay later payment mechanisms to spread out purchases and payday loans, according to the poll. In effect, working-class people both need these riskier, costlier financing tools to pay their bills, and they are the people who can least afford these risky, costly options in the long run, the Century Foundation said in a report on the findings. The working class is also more likely to blame corporations and the wealthy for rigging the system against them financially. For example, 31% of working-class voters said health insurance companies denying doctor-prescribed treatments is a major problem, compared to 20% of college-educated voters. Yet, both groups in the poll voiced support for policies that take aim at corporations to bring down costs. That includes 88% of respondents expressing support to ban health insurance companies from denying doctor-recommended care, 86% backing a ban on corporate money in politics, and 84% saying they support prohibiting Wall Street banks and hedge funds from buying up single-family homes. People are not just hurting, they are angry about it, said Julie Margetta Morgan, president of the Century Foundation. They want accountability. In the elections, I think we will see that play out. People want their relentless focus on lowering their prices, but that message is better received when it actually identifies who is responsible. The poll's findings suggest Democrats in the 2026 midterms could have an opening to run on economic populist policies that target corporations and Wall Street, an approach long embraced by the left wing of the party, but less so by moderate Democrats. Democrats have an opportunity to prove we are the party that is fighting for the poor and the middle class, said Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, who was among the Democrats briefed on the poll. But we have to be willing to break up concentrated corporate power and give that power back to the American people. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12 minutes after the hour. And we continue with the opening section. And we seem to be focusing on the negative this weekend. So this is what they gave us. Invisible labor is crushing mothers. Women are more likely to feel like the default parent. If you are a mom and you are reading this, you might be in line at Target or sitting in a doctor's office. You may be picking up NyQuil or double-checking that it isn't an ear infection. That's because it's after Thanksgiving and before Christmas, a time rivaled only by the last month of school for the busiest time of the year for most moms. So if you are going to read something, it's probably while you are doing something else. And we'll try to keep it short so you can finish. We say moms and not parents because, let's be honest, who is picking the sweater for your mother-in-law in the gift exchange? Who is the one creating the Christmas magic, moving the elf, baking the sugar cookies, scheduling a family photo, making sure there is an equal amount of candy in each child's stocking, even if one of them is now 19? It is the mental load of parenting, the invisible, unpaid work of planning, managing, and organizing all the things women take on to keep a family and household running. And it's pushing women to the breaking point, according to a new USA Today Peacock survey of 1,600 U.S. parents about the mental load parents face. In fact, 43% of women say they are burned out or emotionally exhausted. And more than a third feel that way every single day. USA Today launched the survey with Peacock after the debut of the thriller All Her Fault. At first, the series appears to be a mystery about the kidnapping of a little boy from a wealthy family and who is to blame. But the show sparked conversations on social media, with mom viewers obsessed with a plot they could relate to: the mental load of being a mom. All Her Fault reflects an important moment in motherhood, says Madeline Denano, president and CEO of the Gina Davis Institute, which works to increase representation and reduce stereotypes across gender in entertainment and media. It is not all about the perfect mom, which is what we see so much on TV, she says. Women need to see themselves portrayed on the screen. There is a lot of shame and guilt for not being the perfect mom. Showing this idyllic world just isn't realistic. Dakota Fanning's character is in one of the most important meetings of her career when her deadbeat husband texts her to ask, "Where is Jacob's water bottle?" I am the default parent, and you're the substitute, Fanning tells him. It's not equal. It's never equal. Women are more likely than men to say the pressure of doing it all and meeting expectations is a challenge, according to the USA Today survey. They also are more likely to say they don't turn to anyone for advice or help. Women don't want to ask for help. They want someone to know what to do. It's not okay for men to say, "Just tell me what to do," says Ivory Mays, a therapist and mother of 3 in Cleveland, Tennessee. It isn't that men don't care. They were not raised to scan a home the way moms are. Women are taught to anticipate the needs. That's how moms become the default parent, the one who holds the medical and dental appointments in their heads, who makes sure the basketball uniform is clean, who not only makes the lunches, but does the grocery shopping to make sure the right grapes and goldfish crackers are purchased. The survey found that 64% of women say they manage the day-to-day responsibilities of parenting, compared with 43% of men. The result of all that decision-making? A full 30% of women feel overwhelmed every single day. Mays started helping moms navigate the mental load a few years ago when she was juggling a full-time job and graduate school while raising her 3 children with her husband. She noticed at her monthly mom's self-care nights that many women were interrupted by their husbands texting them to ask, "How should I calm the baby? Where are the pajamas? What do the kids want for dinner?" I talk a lot about reminding men, you live here. You should know what needs to be done. I don't say that to put men down. That's not what that's about at all, she says. It's equal ownership. Though moms have long felt the pressure, more dads are starting to feel it too. Men are more likely than women to say balancing work and family responsibilities is a challenge, according to our survey. Our collective expectations of fathers have shifted. We expect dads to be more involved with their kids, says Allison Daminger, author of What's on Her Mind, The Mental Workload of Family Life, and a professor at the University of Wisconsin. At the same time, the expectations on breadwinning and dads has not changed. We've added to their job description. I think younger dads are starting to feel that strain. Jonathan Gilmour's wife wanted him to do more as a parent to their 2 children. At first, he admits, he got defensive. He thought he was doing his part by saying, "How can I help?" She had told me she was overwhelmed and at her breaking point, says Gilmour, 31. I thought mental load was just like a BS thing. It wasn't until he was laid off earlier this year for a few months and he became the main caretaker of a newborn and a 3-year-old that he really understood it. Now, he and his wife both work full-time, and he has started taking ownership of chores, not just, quote, helping, unquote. She's always had higher expectations for me. I have pushed myself to grow, says Gilmour, who started social media accounts called Do Better Jonathan to show what he is learning and to try to inspire other fathers. Among my friends, there is more of a goal to be more involved with the family. And guys want to learn. It makes me want to do more. Though men are feeling more stress, most feel confident delegating tasks to their partners. Women, however, wrestle with letting go of some caretaking tasks because they believe they will be judged or blamed if it isn't perfect. 4 in 10 women surveyed said they felt pressure to be the perfect parent. I struggle with relinquishing ownership. Why did you say it that way? Why did you do it that way? This way is easier, May says of her husband taking on the hair care for their 3 daughters, a 9-year-old and 6-year-old twins. He needed to remind me that if I wanted him to own this task, I needed to step back. It was getting done, even if not the way I would do it, she says. Now, the girls prefer Dad to do their hair. And while some partners find a way to navigate the load, society still has certain expectations of moms, Daminger says. The school will call the mom if there is a problem, she says, so it can be challenging for many women to give up these things. Caitlin Nillis has seen firsthand how difficult it is to change from one generation to the next. She grew up in a traditional home where her father worked and her mother cared for the children. When Nils got married, she assumed the cooking and cleaning, and later caring for the kids, now 5 and 8. We never had a conversation of who is doing what. It was very natural, she says. But then I was working and taking care of the kids, working full time, and it was the pandemic and it was just too much. Nillis and her husband divorced. For almost 2 years, they shared custody of the children. He was a single father, and he literally had to do everything. Make the lunches, do the pickups, all of it, says Nillis. The couple reconciled more than a year ago, in part because he learned to become a better partner. Now they spend Sunday mornings planning the week, deciding who owns which tasks. I have learned done is better than perfect. And there's always something else to be done, she says. I've had to let go of expectations. We've had conversations. It was not an overnight fix. We really struggled in this area for years and years. One thing about the mental load is clear. It is hitting all of us. Roughly 3/4 of all parents say family responsibilities affect their mental health at least somewhat, and 40% say it affects a great deal, the survey shows. The next frontier is getting men talking to each other about it, Daminger says. The message is still coming through women. I'm hopeful that as time passes, this will not be seen as such a women's issue, but a couple's or family issue. And this column was written by Ivory Mays, who is a therapist and a mother of 3. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 22 minutes after the hour. Judge orders Abrego Garcia to be released from ICE custody. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Salvadoran immigrant whose mistaken deportation to a prison for terrorists earlier this year made him a flashpoint for the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies, was ordered freed by a federal judge. Abrego Garcia, a resident of Beltsville, Maryland, was among hundreds of alleged members of crime gangs MS-13 and Venezuela's Tren de Agua, whom the government expelled to El Salvador on March 15th. Respondents shall release Abrego Garcia from ICE custody immediately, the 2-page document filed yesterday in U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland reads. Abrego was returned to the United States in June, but was later rearrested by immigration authorities. He was first deported in an administrative error, despite an earlier order barring deportation. Top Trump administration officials allege he is a member of the MS-13 gang, which Abrego Garcia reportedly denies. A sheet metal worker and father of 3 who lived for more than a decade in Maryland after entering the country illegally, Abrego Garcia was being held in a prison in El Salvador when a federal grand jury in Nashville indicted him on human smuggling charges on May 21st. The indictment alleges that from 2016 through 2025, Abrego Garcia and other unnamed people conspired to bring undocumented migrants into the United States from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Ecuador, and elsewhere. He has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Continuing, for RFK Jr., it was a bad day on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill have given Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 2 reasons to be in a bad mood. First, a congresswoman filed formal articles of impeachment on December 10th against Kennedy, the nation's top public health official. Representative Haley Stevens, Democrat of Michigan, who, by the way, is running for an open Senate seat in her state, denounced the former presidential candidate and vaccine skeptic in her measure, which has no chance of passing the Republican-controlled House. Robert Kennedy Jr. has imperiled the health and safety of the American people, eroded public confidence in the nation's public health institutions, and stalled progress of scientific and medical work, Stevens wrote in the impeachment articles. The certain-to-fail measure came just days after a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention advisory panel voted to rescind recommendations that newborn babies receive an immediate first dose of the hepatitis B vaccine. The controversial decision drew outrage from public health experts and even some congressional Republicans. Andrew Nixon, the top HHS spokesperson, accused Stevens of playing political games. Secretary Kennedy remains focused on improving Americans' health and lowering costs, not on partisan theatrics designed to elevate standing in a falling and failing third-rate Senate bid, Nixon said in a statement to USA Today. Later in the day, Kennedy drew a second separate rebuke from the Senate. Three Republicans, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina, crossed party lines to join with Democrats and advance a resolution of disapproval against HHS for limiting public participation in the agency's regulatory actions. In late February, the department dropped a policy dating back to 1971 known as the Richardson Waiver, which requires HHS to solicit feedback about its grants and contracts. Critics have said the shift was meant to limit pushback to Kennedy's new health policies. HHS argued that the public participation requirements were contrary to the efficient operation of the department. Nixon did not comment on the Senate's resolution. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 27 minutes after the hour. And let's move over to the opinion section for Friday, December 12th. And I give you a column written by Michelle Heritage, who is executive director of the American Brain Foundation, which funds research on the full spectrum of brain conditions. And Miss Heritage's piece comes under the title, Your Brain's Health Depends on Brain Research. If not for years of brain research, I would be living in unending, unremitting pain. My head would be twisted to one side, and I would cope as best I could with a diet of old-timey muscle relaxants and painkillers. Some muscles would atrophy, while others would become abnormally large. But brain research permits me to live with my cervical dystonia, a relatively rare brain condition, with no pain. The research resulted in a treatment, Botox injections in muscles that my brain is ordering to contract, that has few serious side effects. I can concentrate. I kayak, bike, lift weights. I can do anything I want. A year ago, I free climbed up a sheer rock face. Brain conditions run the gamut from migraines to multiple sclerosis, from dementia to dyslexia. Dealing with brain conditions is close to a universal experience. About 43% of all people will experience one, so odds are that if you don't have one, a loved one will. That makes it imperative to do two things. The first is to take steps that enhance your chances of keeping your own brain healthy and durable. These steps include: keep your vaccinations current. Some preventable diseases can lead to brain conditions, including COVID. Take even small steps to limit exposure to pollution and toxins. Some are linked to Parkinson's and other degenerative diseases. Protect your head. Traumatic brain injury is one of the most preventable, yet devastating risk to long-term brain health. Take care of your mental and emotional well-being. Doing so can lower your risk of dementia. The second is to support brain research however you can and resist efforts to undermine or stop it. I say this not only as a person with a brain condition, but also in my role as Executive Director of the American Brain Foundation, which supports a network of scientists working to unlock breakthroughs in whole brain health in the belief that curing one condition will cure many others. We are doing our part, but you may have noticed that these are difficult times for medical research. Funding suspensions and cuts at the National Institutes of Health, the global powerhouse of medical research, have introduced chaos into a field that thrives on stability. Cutbacks to research mean thousands of real patients are losing their chance at treatments, and millions more will have hope of a cure or treatment delayed or quashed entirely. Researchers right now are learning about how to detect dementia earlier, which will lead to further work that uncovers how the disease works. Dozens of scientists are studying neuroinflammation, a symptom common to a wide variety of brain conditions as diverse as autism, long COVID, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, and more. Figuring out how to address neuroinflammation could unlock a world of cures and treatments. This is a terrible time to walk away from that work. Congress also has a role, if it wants it. Urge senators and representatives to reassert their role, fully fund medical research, and insist that the administration makes use of that funding. Every treatment we have has been the result of research. The ibuprofen you take for your headache, the concussion protocols for your soccer-playing child, and more have all moved from labs into our lives. I have my own unfortunate experience of what the lack of treatment looks like. When my dad had multiple sclerosis, treatments were quite limited. The disease broke down the connection between his brain and his body, leaving him numb, weak, and increasingly immobile. Thanks to decades of well-funded research, my dad would have had a different outcome today. People get the disease into remission and live happier, more functional lives. We can make a difference. Fortunately, there are steps any American can take. Everybody can assist in funding more research, even with as little as $20. Organizations like the American Brain Foundation and others devoted to specific brain conditions put that money to good and efficient use. Every dollar gets us a step closer to cures. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 33 minutes after the hour. And we slide over to the money section, which, as I say every week, has become the travel and tourism section. So we take what they give us. Money, travel, tourism. Cruising altitude. Griner takes on traveling cannabis. WNBA star co-founds advocacy company. And this is written by Zach Winter, USA Today travel columnist. Brittany Griner is perhaps the most famous person to encounter an issue traveling with prescription medicine in recent memory. The WNBA star was arrested in Russia in 2022 on drug possession charges after border agents found vape cartridges containing oil derived from cannabis in her luggage. Griner was ultimately sentenced to prison in Russia and served 10 months before becoming part of a prisoner exchange deal. Griner acknowledged that she had been prescribed medical cannabis for off-season pain management, but said it was never her intention to bring banned substances into Russia. Since then, she has become active in advocating for better education around traveling with regulated prescriptions and recently co-founded ZenJet, a company that offers legal assistance and travel insurance for medical cannabis users. I never want anybody to go through what I went through. I am aware that I am very blessed and very lucky to have an agency team, my wife, and everybody behind me, Greiner told me in a recent interview. I want people to be able to be aware, informed, and to know where they're going, where they are traveling. Greiner said that her situation was an extreme worst-case scenario for travelers who inadvertently bring a regulated or banned substance into another country. She was traveling to Russia to play in a professional basketball league during the WNBA offseason. They take you, detain you. They literally will strip you of everything you have, and all communication is gone. So for me, it was a very scary moment, she said. They're talking to me in Russian. I don't speak Russian. There's no translator. They go grab this lady from the duty-free store to translate for me, who's not a translator. She works at the duty-free store. Greiner said officials were urging her to sign documents in Russian, and she was eventually able to get in touch with her agent and her wife, who is a lawyer. She served 10 months in a Russian prison after pleading guilty before being released as part of a prisoner exchange brokered by President Trump. Greiner returned to the United States after her release and plays for the Atlanta Dream WNBA franchise. Being a political pawn is definitely different than what a lot of people will experience, Greiner said. I hope no one else experiences what I experienced. Greiner and others at ZenJet acknowledge that no matter how careful you are, there are still risks when traveling internationally with prescription medication. They can be stopped at the border or at the airport when coming in, and a lot of times they will find prescription medication that's not allowed in a country, or it could be prescription medication that they've taken out of the original container, Christopher McElhinney, ZenJet's chief intelligence officer, told me. That can be an issue as well. Every country has its own regulations about prescription medication and controlled substances. So it's important to do your research into exactly what's allowed before you travel to avoid any possible complications at the border. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends checking with embassies in the countries you're planning to visit. McElhinney and Greiner both acknowledged that travelers rarely get arrested for bringing in banned or regulated prescriptions, but the medicine could be confiscated by customs authorities abroad, which poses its own complications for travelers who rely on their prescriptions to stay healthy. Greiner said she has different bags for at-home use and travel use now to avoid inadvertently leaving anything she's not supposed to have in her luggage, and does a careful inspection before every trip. Going through our bags, checking every pocket, she said. If I am moving around with certain medications, making sure that I don't use a bag that I would use for traveling, so there's just no cross-contamination. Greiner added that doing your research on exactly what is and isn't allowed in advance can help make your trip smoother. Educate yourself before you're going, even if it's somewhere that you've traveled and all your friends travel to a lot, she said. I tell people, look it up. Look up their laws. Look up what can I bring. McElhinney agreed that kind of research is crucial before every trip, as well as bringing the right documents with you. The biggest thing is to become aware, prior to traveling, of what's allowed and not allowed, he said. Always travel with a copy of the prescription. Make sure any prescription medication is carried in an original container with your name on it. ZenJet members can register their trips with the company and receive detailed information about drug and prescription regulations for their destination. We did extensive research on all of the countries. Every country has a breakdown of the drugs that are allowed and not allowed, McElhinney said. If it turns out you're not permitted to bring some of the medicine you depend on in another country, you may not automatically have to call off your trip. If you know in advance that they don't accept them there, you can reach out to a local doctor in a country where you're going, See if you can set up to meet a doctor when you arrive, McElhaney said. Set up to have that prescription filled locally. Some countries have stricter laws about medication importation than they do about distribution within the country. He added that you can also consult with your doctor to see if there are alternative, permitted medicines you can take temporarily to stay in compliance with regulations abroad. Greiner agreed that research and advanced planning are crucial if you need to travel with prescriptions. Education is key, she said. Taking that bit of time can save you a lot of heartache, a lot of money, and a lot of time. Not to mention a potential prison sentence. And we continue. Here's a question we ask ourselves every day. To cruise or not to cruise? Well, we're going to give you the comparison. C, that's SEA, the value. If you want at least two of these scenarios, it may be a trip for you. Planes, trains, automobiles. There are lots of ways to get where you're going on vacation, but some trips are best experienced by cruise ship. Cruises offer unique ways to see destinations. Think scenic sailing through Norwegian fjords or passing the Statue of Liberty before docking in New York. They also boast a hard-to-beat combination of amenities, from a wide range of restaurants and bars to water slides, roller coasters, and ice skating rinks. Plus, when you've got a large group traveling together, there are plenty of options for each guest to choose their own travel adventures. Here are 7 scenarios when travelers should consider taking a cruise. Number 1, you're taking a multi-generational trip. Many mainstream cruise lines, such as Royal Caribbean International or Norwegian Cruise Line, take a something-for-everyone approach to building out their ships and programming. That can be especially nice for families traveling together who can take advantage of adult-only spaces, kids clubs, and more. With that type of a scenario, everyone in the party would be able to have their desired type of entertainment or experience, including maybe the grandparents all the way down to the kids who might want to spend some time in the youth centers, and the parents could go have a romantic dinner while the grandparents are hanging out with the kids, said Sherry Griffiths, founder of Cruise Tips TV. Number 2, you are visiting destinations worth seeing from the water. Cruises can offer access to remote destinations like Alaska or Antarctica, allowing guests to see them from a vantage point they can't get on land. Most of the time, when you're sailing through Alaska, you are seeing uninhabited, untouched coastline, little tiny tree-lined islands that have absolutely no humans on them, Griffith said. These are things that you would not see unless you owned a boat and you were cruising through Alaska on your own. Number 3, you don't want to fly. Cruises also allow guests to reach far-flung ports without long-haul flights. There's an entire segment of people who might take a transatlantic crossing, for example, just to get to Europe without having to fly, Griffith said. And you can actually do the same thing with Hawaii. You can cruise to and from Hawaii from the Pacific coast. Some cruise lines even offer months-long voyages visiting many countries that sail round-trip from the United States. And here's a pro tip. Repositioning voyages when cruise lines move their ships from one part of the world to another between seasons can also offer significantly cheaper fares if you don't mind the extra sea days. Number 4, favoring cruises. You want a mostly inclusive trip. Despite how they're sometimes pitched, most cruises are not truly all-inclusive. Mainstream brands typically charge extra for a number of amenities, from specialty coffees to Wi-Fi. However, it's possible to take a cruise without spending more than the fare and the taxes and fees, as a wide range of meals, drinks, and activities are bundled in. Number 5, you want an accessible way to travel. Cruise ships can be among the most accessible modes of transportation for those with mobility limitations, offering accessible staterooms, pool lifts, and more to accommodate guest needs. That said, some may be more accessible than others. You can find USA Today's guide to taking a cruise with a wheelchair or scooter by checking the USA Today website. Number 6, you only want to unpack once. Land-based travel can involve unpacking and repacking a suitcase multiple times if you're trying to hit more than one destination, not to mention the potential stress of losing your luggage in transit. Once you board a cruise ship, unpack your suitcase, and slide it under the stateroom bed, you don't have to think about it for the rest of the trip. That's one less obstacle between you and your vacation. And number 7, you want a, quote, done-for-you vacation. Taking a cruise eliminates the need for much of the planning that goes into land-based vacations. The ship offers accommodations, transportation, food, and entertainment all in one. That can lighten the burden in places like Europe, where guests can see many places in a short amount of time, and you still have the freedom to customize your booking with add-ons like shore excursions. For example, when you go on a Mediterranean cruise, in most cases, you visit a new country every single day, Griffith said. So, not just a new city, but oftentimes you're in a new country. So you might be in Rome for one day, and then you might be in France the next day, and the island nation of Malta another day. That's a very complex thing to have to plan if you're doing it on land, and doing it on a cruise ship certainly eliminates a lot of the planning stress. Now, let's take a look if you're not thinking about a cruise, or you don't like a cruise, or you had enough of cruises. If you want to avoid crowds or being on the ocean, consider other travel options. The cruise industry is growing, with a record number of Americans expected to set sail for the 4th year in a row in 2026. But not everyone is guaranteed to enjoy a vacation on the high seas. For those used to land-based vacations, cruises offer a different kind of experience. They combine accommodations, entertainment, dining, and transportation all in one. They also feature a more inclusive pricing structure than most lodging back on shore. But some of their unique qualities may be detractors rather than perks, depending on your vacation preferences. So here are 5 times you may not want to take a cruise. Number 1, if you don't like crowds. There's a certain amount of togetherness baked into the cruise model. You have to be okay with crowds to a certain extent. Joanna Kuther, a travel agent and owner of Portside Travel Consultants, told USA Today. Even though you can find private places, but debarkation at the ports, those types of situations, if people aren't okay with crowds, that can be very uncomfortable for them. The size of those crowds can vary, however. Some ships can accommodate thousands of guests, while others carry just hundreds. Number 2, you want to travel independently. Cruises can simplify the trip planning process while still allowing guests to customize their voyage to a point. It is a catered experience, Kuther said, and I think people do like that. There are tons of things to do, so you can kind of curate your own day, but it's not limitless. Passengers are beholden to the ship's schedule and offerings, from when it arrives and departs a port to the selection of restaurants on board and their operating hours. When first-time cruisers don't use a very experienced cruise agent, it could go so sideways that they will never get on a ship again, she added. You have to manage their expectations so carefully so they do understand what is available and what is not available on a cruise. Number 3, and here's a big one, if you don't like being on the water. Cruise ships spend a lot of time at sea. If you prefer to keep your feet on dry land or are prone to motion sickness, they may not be for you. though there are remedies available in case passengers do get seasick. Number 4, you want to go to a specific destination. Cruise itinerary changes are relatively rare, but they do happen. Cruise lines may reroute ships because of bad weather, geopolitical developments, or other reasons, causing certain ports to be removed or replaced. If you are determined to visit a specific destination, a cruise may not always be a sure bet. You want to cruise for an itinerary, of course, because you want to go places you want to go. But it's just never guaranteed, Kuether said. So if you are like, oh, I can't wait to see this island, I would say fly there directly. And number 5, you want to spend an extended period of time somewhere. Mainstream cruises don't generally offer long stays in a given destination. It's not great for people who really want to immerse themselves in a destination, because you really have a day at the most in these places, so it's kind of fast-moving, Kuether said. You're not really getting that relaxed vibe. That can vary depending on the cruise and operator, however. Some sailings do offer overnight stops that give guests more time in port. Still, Kuether believes almost all travelers can find a voyage they will enjoy. I would say there's pretty much a cruise for everybody. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 51 minutes after the hour. New border rules eyed for travelers to the U.S. Travelers entering the United States could soon face expanded biometric screening and new digital reporting requirements as U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, seeks to overhaul how it verifies the identities and movements of millions of visitors. In a new proposal published in the Federal Register, the Department of Homeland Security is asking the public to weigh in on a series of major changes to the arrival-departure record process and the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, known as ESTA, the program used by citizens of visa waiver program countries to enter the United States. The proposal affects nearly every foreign traveler entering the country and comes as border searches of personal devices have drawn increasing attention and concern from travelers. CBP is proposing several updates, including new biometric requirements, increased data collection, and the elimination of the ESTA website in favor of a mobile-only system. Among the proposed changes, a new voluntary self-reported exit feature allowing foreign nationals to confirm their departure from the United States by submitting passport data, a live selfie, and geolocation through CBP's mobile app. Mandatory selfie uploads for all ESTA applicants, including those applying through third parties such as travel agents. A mobile-only ESTA application, eliminating the web-based option after CBP documented widespread abuse linked to poor quality image uploads and fraudulent third-party websites charging travelers unnecessary fees. And then we have expanded high-value data fields, including applicants' social media accounts from the past 5 years, phone numbers and email addresses going back a decade, IP addresses, and even biometrics such as fingerprints, face, DNA, and iris scans when feasible. These additions stem from a January executive order targeting foreign terrorist threats. And updates to the visa waiver program, including the recent removal of Romania and the expectation that additional countries may be added in the coming years. CBP says these changes are designed to reduce fraud, improve identity verification, and close long-standing gaps in the tracking of foreign visitors who enter and exit the United States. The proposal underscores what many immigration attorneys and border experts have already warned. Entering the United States increasingly involves scrutiny of your identity, your digital presence, and your travel history. Earlier this year, USA Today reported a series of incidents in which U.S. residents and visa holders were detained or deported after CBP officers reviewed the contents of their phones under heightened security measures. Those searches, which can include photos, videos, deleted files, and public social media posts, are legal at the border without a warrant. Any traveler entering the U.S. is subject to CBP inspection, CBP Assistant Commissioner Hilton Beckham said in May. While searches are rare and highly regulated, he said they have been used to identify terrorism, smuggling, human trafficking, and visa fraud. Immigration attorney Susan Hubel told USA Today that most travelers still enter the United States without issue, but that device searches and digital screening increasingly play a role when officers suspect someone's activities don't match their visa. She added that the proposal for increased social media vetting is concerning, and the added security on someone's public online activity, including political posts, could be used as a pretense for denying visas. For people who are careful with their social media, it should not be a problem. But we are already seeing delays in visa applications due to appointment rescheduling by the U.S. consular post and simply more vetting, which increases the adjudication time, she said. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, December 12th, 2025, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walzik. I'm glad you were able to join us. I look forward to seeing you the next time. Have a great weekend.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Nancy. Life section, which is Section B. Documentaries, Biggest Moments of Swift's Docuseries, from Melissa Ruggieri. Taylor Swift sits on a couch backstage and sobs. She's wearing her show-opening sequin jacket and leotard, an outfit familiar to the millions of fans who watched her on the Eras Tour, about to dazzle London's Wembley Stadium for the first of 5 sold-out shows. But she's just come from meeting privately with the families of the young victims stabbed to death or injured just weeks prior at a dance class themed to her music in Southport, England. As Swift covers her face to gather her tears, her mother, Andrea, tries to comfort her. Swift knows the show must go on and will compartmentalize her emotions for the next 3.5 hours of her marathon concert. It's one of numerous strikingly unfiltered moments in the end of an era, Swift's 6-part docuseries on Disney+. The first 2 episodes, screened by a small group of media earlier in the week in New York, arrived December 12th, with 2 more landing each Friday until December 26th. Swift's record-breaking tour, which she planned 2 years before its March 2023 bow in Glendale, Arizona, was a movement, a cultural touchstone, a seismic event that altered economies of countries, spurred tourism, and sparked friendships among her disciples. The Eras Tour is not likely to be replicated anytime soon, even by Swift, who achieved billionaire status from her indefatigable focus and physical endurance, all stemming from her desire to overserve the fans. Her worldwide romp deserves this interior analysis. As intimate as it is to see Swift run a bath and smear off her makeup post-show in a hotel suite as her beloved cat, Benjamin Button, peeks into the tub, it's equally rewarding to learn about the ancillary players, the dancers, production team, band members, choreographers, background singers, as well as the enormous mission of setting up and tearing down a small city 149 times over 18 months. A lot of magic and mystery has to happen when something goes on, as well as this did, Swift said at the preview screening. Here are some highlights from the first 2 episodes of Swift's mystical accomplishment. Is Travis Kelce in Taylor Swift's End of an Era's documentary? Fans of the engaged couple scouring the film for signs of the towering tight end will see him at some point, as evidenced in the End of an Era trailer. But early on, only a few sweet phone conversations are shared with Swift, answering one call from her beau with an excited baby. As she tells him about her day, the pair summarize the parallels of their respective jobs. I've got songs to remember. You have plays to remember. You have Kansas City Chiefs coach Andy Reid. I have my mom, Swift says with a laugh. As Kelce continues to praise and encourage Swift, she jokes, some people get a vitamin drip. I get this conversation. Swift didn't hide her fear after a thwarted terrorist attack. In August 2024, Swift canceled her 3 concerts at Ernst Happel Stadium when local authorities uncovered a plot to mass murder concert attendees. The shows, which would have been her first time performing in Austria, were the penultimate dates of a European leg that would end a week later in London. Swift is clearly, understandably, rattled as she lays barefoot on a couch backstage, which will mark her return to the stage after the near tragedy in Vienna. She is worried about her fans and whether her concern will distract during her performance. Swift's face is clouded with anxiety as she crouches on the hydraulic lift that will momentarily boost her from under the safety of the stage into the sight lines of 90,000 people. 3.5 hours later, she walks off stage, yelling to everyone within earshot, "We're back," before she slumps into a waiting SUV, exhausted and sweaty, to immediately call Kelsey. The Tortured Poets Society, segment akin to a new tour. Swift does nothing halfway, and when she dropped a new album in the midst of the Eras tour, she knew she had to modify the stage show to include the Tortured Poets Society. During a supposed break between March and May 2024, Swift and her crew worked at a secret rehearsal facility to craft new staging, dance moves, costumes, and vocal arrangements, the complete opposite of any rest. At Swift's closing show in London in August 2024, 3 months after debuting the new sequence, she invited her Florida partner, Florence Welch, to perform the song with her at Wembley Stadium. Again, a new set piece and choreography was designed, with Welch, a game and hilarious participant, learning dance moves and experiencing her first hydraulic lift. Swift loved Bonus Day. Not many bosses would take the kind of delight Swift did in presenting every member of her team with bonus checks. The approach was, if the tour grosses more money, those who were part of the journey would receive bonuses. But with typical Swiftian flair, she presented the group with handwritten notes finished with a wax seal. Though the amount of the bonus was bleeped out, the facial expressions, tears and hugs suggested the Swifts' rumored generosity is very, very real. Here's a streaming review. I was wrong about Disney Plus's Percy Jackson, from Kelly Lawler. Sometimes it's healthy to admit when you're wrong. When Disney Plus's Percy Jackson and the Olympians debuted in 2023, I was seriously underwhelmed by it. But I was seemingly the only one. The series was another attempt at adaptation of Rick Riordan's wildly popular book series, after disappointing 2010 and 2013 feature films, and involved much more input from Riordan himself and much greater loyalty to his text. Book fans loved it, and it was quickly picked up by Disney Plus. It's the most popular series Disney Plus has ever made that doesn't have Marvel or Star Wars in the title. By all measures, it was a huge success. But I was unmoved by the first few episodes, about a prepubescent New York kid, played by Walker Scobell, who finds out that Greek gods and mythology are all real, and that he's a half-blood demigod son of Poseidon. There was something about the show I couldn't connect with, as Percy makes his way into the world of gods and monsters, and heads off on a quest with friends Annabeth, played by Leah Savage Jeffries, and Grover, Arian Smedley. 2 years later, I'll be the first to raise my hand to say, my bad, in both the first season and the brand new season 2, Percy, streaming Wednesdays, 3.5 stars, has actually been the magical, joyful, full-hearted show fans deserved and cynics spurned, myself included. Amid our current doom and gloom world and a glut of tasteless media aimed at kids on TikTok and YouTube, Percy is a shining light. There aren't enough stories anymore about growing up, finding your inner hero, being part of a community and a team, and caring for each other. We should celebrate such stories. Series 2 of Percy is a glow-up all around, and not just because its 3 main actors are distinctly on the other side of puberty. In addition to a deepened voice, Scobell now towers over Virginia Snull, the actress who plays his mother. For this year's quest, Percy must rescue Grover from the Sea of Monsters, the title of the series' second book upon which this season is based, and procure a mythical fleece. It's all part of his ongoing mission to please his absentee godfather, save Camp Half-Blood, as the sanctuary of demigods like himself, and stop Titan Kronos from overthrowing all the Olympians. This time, his friendship, with hints of romance, with Annabeth will be tested by both these young heroes' desire to do the right thing and save the world. Plus, they have a sometimes annoying new pal, Cyclops Tyson, played by Daniel Diemer. Although Tyson is a chipper character and welcome addition, the effects to create his single eye linger unpleasantly in the uncanny valley, in spite of how advanced CGI can be. The series continues to feature cameos from adult celebrities as the gods, including reappearances from Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hermes and Jason Mantzoukas as Dionysius. But they feel less intrusive this year as the kids really come into their own. While the long 2 years between seasons means the actual performers had grown more than their characters, any fans of the original Harry Potter movies or Stranger Things are familiar with this inconvenient reality. It has given the young stars time to grow as actors, leading to more nuanced line readings and emotions for their characters. The return to summer camp is monumental. Now that exposition and origin stories are out of the way, the second season immediately feels more fantastical and flamboyant. The writing is effortlessly humorous, and the world building is easier to understand, and the joy, hope, and sense of fun are just as strong as they were in season 1. Nobody has forgotten this is an adventure. Maybe when Percy first debuted, I wasn't ready to be sucked up into Riordan's world of epic journeys and heavenly parents. Maybe the introduction to that universe felt choppy on screen because I hadn't read the original books. Maybe I just didn't get it, but now I do. And running away with Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Tyson is freeing and exciting. I'm happy to leave my negativity and pessimism behind and go on a quest of my own into the world of Percy Jackson. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Now we've got Section C, which is sports. Vrabel Engineers Patriots Fun Run. New England is atop AFC East with an 11-2 mark. From Chris Bomica. No naps. Not literally, of course. If a member of the New England Patriots required one, and it didn't hurt anybody else, head coach Mike Vrabel would likely allow some short-term shut-eye. The metaphorical nap is what the 3-time Super Bowl winner as a player here, and now first-year head coach of the Patriots, hopes to avoid. In this league, if you take a nap, you're going to get beat, and that's just how it is, Vrabel said earlier in the season. So we're not trying to take a nap. Applying that logic, the Patriots haven't slept since September 21st, when New England gave the ball away 5 times in a 21-14 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The defeat dropped them to 1-2. They haven't lost since and carry a 10-game winning streak into a pivotal matchup against the Buffalo Bills. With a win, the Pats can claim their first AFC East title since 2019 and snap the Bills' 5-year streak atop the division. For an organization that won 8 games over the last 2 seasons, one Bill Belichick's final season in New England, the other Jared Mayo's disastrous standalone year at the helm, that is quite the turnaround. One person stands at the center of it, and it's not even second-year quarterback Drake May, who is a bona fide MVP candidate. That would be the guy keeping his team awake and already knocking on the door of the postseason. Turnaround table? Vrabel has Pats rolling in year 1. Turnarounds in the first year of a regime change aren't uncommon in the NFL. The last place schedule helps. The amount of cap room the Patriots entered free agency in 2025 helps bring in well-paid veterans, and if managed properly, can lead to improved locker room leadership. Players point to April 7th, the day off-season workouts started for New England. As the day, the team's mentality and expectations started moving in the right direction. He's been in our shoes before. He's done it before at a high level, won some Super Bowls, caught some touchdown passes, running back Ramondre Stevenson said after the Patriots' December 1st victory over the New York Giants. He's done it all, so it's easy to listen to him and follow his lead. A linebacker, Vrabel made his bones sacking the opposing quarterbacks for Belichick's defenses. But his 12-year touchdown catches cemented him in the lore of two-way part-timers. In his book, The Art of Winning, Belichick, who led the Patriots to 6 Super Bowl victories over 24 years, wrote of Vrabel, "Everything he did was done with purpose and an edginess. Even joking, Mike's knife was always sharp, but it was never malicious. If anything, it made people feel like they were important to the organization if he targeted them. It also helped that he could take it as good as he gave it." Vrabel became head coach of the Tennessee Titans in 2018 after one season as a defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. He went 54-45 in 6 seasons, with 3 playoff appearances for Tennessee, which decided to move on after the 2023 season. His replacement, Brian Callahan, was fired 6 games into the season. Vrabel spent the 2024 season around the Cleveland Browns as a special assistant. But like he prepared himself to be a coach during his playing career, he was readying for his next job. Cleveland special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone, a teammate of Vrabel's during their Patriot days, placed blue-collar type shirts in each player's locker, both as a gift and to send a message. For Vrabel, who loves Christmas and enjoys giving gifts, doing the same in New England was a no-brainer. "I got one in brown last year. I thought it looked better in blue, so we got the guys some of those shirts," Vrabel said. "I thought it would be fun. I liked it. They liked it in Cleveland, so that's kind of what it was." Center Garrett Bradbury said Vrabel can hone his coaching style through a unique lens. He's like, "What would I want as a player?" Or, "I've been a head coach before, and what worked and didn't work," Bradbury said. This whole player-friendly thing gets thrown around quite a bit. I've played for a few head coaches. I like what Coach Vrabel does a lot. The little things that mean a lot to Vrabel, using another example he referenced the week of the second Bills game, could be something like wide receiver Mac Hollins reacting to a tackle on the opening kickoff in the game. Vrabel has been clear with what the expectations are. The primary goal for the 2025 season, preached from that first day of OTAs, was to win the division. The players have appreciated that consistency behind the message. During training camp, Vrabel wanted to eliminate a mental tools meeting in an effort to give players more rest and allow them to come in later. But the veteran player leadership group said that it was an important 25 minutes of the week. Vrabel had to find another way to make his players happy while accomplishing a coaching goal. "I love coaching these guys," Vrabel said. "It's fun. They make coming to work a lot of fun." Handshakes and hugs. Vrabel isn't the only coach in the NFL who greets each player with a hug and a meaningful handshake as they enter the locker room after a win. But that doesn't make it any less special to his players. It means a lot. He's someone that connects to his players really well. Rookie running back Trevon Henderson told USA Today Sports. Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell does the same. Cornerback Carlton Davis said, "Great coaches do that." Davis told USA Today Sports, "Great minds think alike. It's just a part of who they are and what they do." Vrabel's reasoning for it is that if he says something to a player leading up to the game and it turns out how we predicted, then he sees it as a chance to remind them of that conversation and thank them for understanding what it is we're trying to get done. There's a lot of things that are good that you take from people, and there's some things that you come up with on your own that's good. And then there's some ones that are clunkers, Vrabel said. When they're clunkers, you own it, change it, and fix it. Clunkers is not a bad way to describe most of the post-Tom Brady seasons of the New England Patriots. Owned, changed, fixed. An AFC East title in the first year of Vrabel's tenure would go a long way in that regard. Just don't hit snooze on that alarm. Love takes rushing route to Heisman festivities, from Mike Berardino. Record-setting junior running back Jeremiah Love is the first Notre Dame football player to earn a Heisman Trophy invitation since linebacker Manti Te'es in 2012. Wide receiver Tim Brown was the seventh and most recent Notre Dame winner of the Heisman in 1987. No running back has won the Heisman since Alabama's Derrick Henry in 2015. That continued an oddity in which every year that ended with a 5 has seen a running back claim an award for the nation's outstanding college football player. Southern Cal's Reggie Bush won the Heisman in 2005. Before him, it was Ohio State's Eddie George, 1995, Auburn's Bo Jackson, 1985, Ohio State's Archie Griffin, 1975, USC's Mike Garrett, 1965, Ohio State's Howard Hopalong Cassidy, 1955, Army's Felix Doc Blanchard, 1945, and inaugural winner Jay Beringer, 1935, of the University of Chicago. Love is also a finalist for the Maxwell Award, which is the top player, and Walter Camp Player of the Year, as well as the Doak Walter Award, which goes to the nation's top running back. With his 21st touchdown of the season in the finale at Stanford, the running back from St. Louis broke Jerome Bettis' 34-year-old program record. Love's 1,372 rushing yards ranked fourth in the country, and his 18 rushing touchdowns ranked third. His 6.89 yard per carry average leads all players with at least 1,050 rushing yards this year. A threat as a receiver as well, Love has 27 catches for 280 yards and 3 scores. Love, along with 3 other finalists, all quarterbacks, Indiana's Fernando Mendoza, Ohio State's Julian Sayin, and Vanderbilt's Diego Pava, will participate in Heisman-related activities on Friday, December 12th in the Big Apple, followed by Saturday night's announcement on ESPN, 7 Eastern. Notre Dame's Heisman winners before Brown were quarterback John Hart, 1964, quarterback Paul Hornung, 1956, halfback John Leitner, 1953, and Leon Hart, 1949, quarterback John Lujack, 1947, and quarterback Angela Bertelli, 1943. Irish players have finished in the top 5 of Heisman voting 26 times in the award's history. Michigan football's hiring bar is Kalen DeBoer. Clear it or hire him, from Blake Topmeyer. Anyone checked in on Lane Kiflin's LSU buyout? The Michigan job just opened. I'm kidding, but only just. One of college's football's best jobs needs filled. Alert the Renegades. Unlike the last time the Wolverines made a hire, they can fill the seat of this time without the inconvenience of NCAA suits lurking in the corner. The NCAA's sign-stealing penalty has been handed down, and Michigan skated past the scythe with probation and a big fine. Neither will deter job candidates, so bring on the A-listers. Good riddance to Sharon Moore. Michigan fired him for cause after it found credible evidence He engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member, according to the university. How will we remember the Moore era? For a lot of tears and a lot of punts, and for how he wound up in jail on the night of his firing. Forget the calendar, Michigan, a premier job. Moore was a seat warmer anyway, a glorified interim coach while Michigan rode out multiple NCAA probes after cheating its way to glory under Jim Harbaugh. Never mind that Moore's firing comes a tad late in the job-hopping calendar. The coaching carousel just stopped spinning, but this job could open in March, and I'd expect Michigan to pry loose a premier coach. I'm not sure you'd need a second hand to tick off the number of jobs better than Michigan. I mean, Michigan finished 9-3 this season with Moore as its coach. Yes, indeed, this is a premier job. Premier jobs attract premier candidates, no matter the date on the calendar. When Alabama needed to replace Nick Saban 2 years ago in mid-January, it secured the coach of the national runner-up. Kalen DeBoer is the bar for a late-in-the-cycle hire. Go beat it, Michigan, or maybe DeBoer himself is the solution. I mentioned A-listers. Well, how about a script A candidate? If Alabama loses to Oklahoma in the college football playoffs first round, angry Bammers might list DeBoer's house on Zillow. There's gorgeous real estate in Ann Arbor, and I'd much rather come in on the heels of a fired coach's alleged moral turpitude than replace the GOAT. Michigan's schedules the next 2 seasons are rugged, but long-term facing Big Ten fare with ultra-billionaire Larry Ellison's checkbook at your disposal sounds better than trying to survive the SEC's fines. As a sidebar, Oracle's share prices is up nearly 270% the past 5 years. Money makes the world go round, and money makes the crowds flow in. Hey, Marcus Freeman, Michigan's never been left out of the 12-team playoff with a 10-2 record, because Moore couldn't reach 10-2. But, seriously, I wouldn't care that Freeman played for Ohio State. Consider it intel. He knows how they operate in CBUS. I'm skeptical Freeman would leave Notre Dame for anywhere other than perhaps Ohio State or the NFL. Worth finding out. And don't even start with Brian Kelly. He came no closer to the playoffs at LSU than Moore did for Michigan. The Wolverines can set their sights higher than the scrap heap. Hoyer will inherit talented recruits and a big booster. Michigan signed a top 15 class this cycle, on the heels of landing #1 ranked quarterback prospect Bryce Underwood last year. Now it needs someone to coach and develop all that talent. Moore's Wolverines mustered 35 points against their 3 toughest opponents this season. Not 35 points per game, 35 points total in losses to Oklahoma, Southern Cal, and Ohio State. Michigan, having cause to fire Moore, meant this ouster comes 11 months sooner than it otherwise might have, and free of a buyout charge. The firing comes 1 month too late for the peak hiring cycle, and perhaps too late to chase Kiffin. But if the Michigan job is as good as I think, the timing is but a hiccup and not a doomsday scenario. DeBoer is the bar. Clear it or fire him. Blake Topmeyer is the USA Today Network's senior college football columnist. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 47 minutes after the hour. Here's Dumb from the folks at Michigan, from Matt Hayes. In the long, illustrious history of Dumb, Michigan hiring Sharon Moore ranks near the very top. You want dumb? Let me show you dumb. Michigan fired Moore for cause after 2 seasons Wednesday, December 10th, mere months after he was suspended for a second time by the NCAA for cheating. While working for Jim Harbaugh, the coach Michigan sold its soul to protect from NCAA investigators during a national championship run in 2023 while he was cheating. We don't know yet if Moore cheated as the Michigan head coach. On the field, anyway. Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel released a statement saying there was credible evidence that Coach Moore engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member, and that's why Moore was fired for cause. Isn't that just a nice, neat bow to wrap up this colossal failure of a coaching hire? So what do we have learned from all this, kids? If you're Harbaugh and the most beloved alum in Michigan football history, you can do just about anything as a coach, and the university will defend you at the cost of its reputation, and a $30 million fine from the NCAA. If you're Moore and a former Oklahoma offensive lineman, even a victory over Ohio State in your first season can buy you time when you've proved, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that you can't cheat without getting caught at anything, apparently. Now, watch how quickly Michigan turns on Moore. Watch how stories and anecdotes leak that Moore was never the right guy for the job in the first place. How Michigan panicked because it wanted to keep the momentum of the Harbaugh years, which brought unprecedented success and, finally, the ability to beat Ohio State again. School officials couldn't turn their back on Moore, also suspended by the NCAA for his role in violations during the pandemic season of 2020. The loyal Harbaugh assistant, who steered Michigan to 3 critical victories to finish the 2023 regular season, while Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games. So Michigan knowingly replaced one cheater with another and went further down the rabbit hole of shredding its once impeccable reputation. Because, he beat Ohio State. I can almost understand allowing yourself to be publicly flogged for protecting Harbaugh at all cost. It's the mean media's fault, right? No one believes the media, the fake news, so they must be wrong about Harbaugh and his knowledge of Connor Stalions' advanced scouting scheme that helped turn Michigan, under Harbaugh, from a good team that couldn't beat Ohio State to a great team that did multiple times and eventually won a national title. If it had nothing to do with cheating, Central Michigan wouldn't have admitted that, while Coach John McElwain wasn't a co-conspirator. He was responsible for his staff's actions in allowing Stalions on its sideline with CMU gear in an effort to disguise himself while scouting CMU's game against Michigan State. If it had nothing to do with cheating, the NCAA wouldn't have suspended Moore for 3 games for his part in the scheme, 1 game that was deferred to 2026. If you don't think it was cheating, my name is Ford, and I've got an Edsel to sell you. Speaking of dumb and Michigan, if I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. Harbaugh would never ever allow a low-level staffer, as the Michigan PR machine quickly labeled Stalions, on his sideline to scream at his assistants about the other team's play calls, while his assistants then changed their play calls in response, without knowing the complete ins and outs of the Stalions scheme. Moore, of course, was the key assistant in that scenario. He was the offensive coordinator, the heart of the unit that had to figure out how to score points on and beat Ohio State. Just in case Michigan doesn't know this yet, or refuses to admit it, that means Moore was cheating too. That and the fact he deleted 52 text messages from Stalions shortly after the advanced scouting scheme was unearthed by the mean media. The people who obviously lie. So we'll just stick this underqualified, 2-time cheater of an assistant coach into one of the top 10 jobs in college football and hope for the best. What could go wrong? Raise your hand if you're shocked, if you just cannot believe what you are reading. Who among us, except the brilliant minds at Michigan, couldn't see this coming from Kalamazoo? Unfortunately, it takes something like this to bring everything into focus, to sharpen the senses, eliminate PR nonsense fed to the masses, and elevate truth. To make it very clear that Michigan made this move 1 week after National Signing Day, after letters of intent and name, image, and likeness, NIL deals were signed and everything was moving forward for 2026 and beyond. If you think the university didn't know it was firing more the moment it lost to Ohio State in late November, because you can't fire a guy who beat Ohio State in both seasons, no matter the cheating, you're the same person who thinks Harbaugh knew nothing, which would put you at the top of the list of dumbest dumb in the history of dumb. NASCAR settles antitrust case featuring Michael Jordan team, from Josh Peter. The NASCAR antitrust trial has ended without an official winner, and without an official loser either. Michael Jordan and the other plaintiffs settled with the sanctioning body of stock car racing, ending a fierce legal battle over whether NASCAR has used anti-competitive practices and harmed Jordan's racing team. The refusal to settle over the past year led to a showdown in federal court between NASCAR and the plaintiffs. 2311 Racing, co-owned by Jordan and driver Denny Hamlin, and Front Row Motorsports. But on Thursday, December 11th, with the high-stakes trial moving closer to a verdict, the settlement brought the case to an abrupt halt at U.S. District Court of the Western District of North Carolina in Charlotte. The trial was in its 9th day. Megan Hollywood, an attorney with Schinder Canton Lerner law firm who specializes in antitrust cases, told USA Today Sports on Wednesday, December 10th, that a settlement would not be a surprise. The alternative was to leave the outcome in the hands of the jury. It's risky on both sides, Hollywood said. On the steps outside the courthouse, Jordan stood next to NASCAR CEO Jim France and addressed the media. "We're like two competitors, obviously," he said. "The only way this sport's going to grow is we have to find some synergy between the two entities, and I think we've gotten to that point." Said France, "I feel like we made a very good decision here." A reporter asked Jordan what was the impetus that led to the settlement today and not earlier. "Level heads," Jordan said, drawing laughter from reporters. "In all honesty, when you get to the finish line, sometimes you have to think not for yourself, but think about the sport as a whole. And I think both parties got to that point, and we realized we can have an opportunity to settle this, and we dove in and we actually did it." France had testified for 2 days on Tuesday, December 9th and Wednesday, December 10th, after being called as a witness by the plaintiffs. This outcome gives all parties the flexibility and confidence to continue delivering unforgettable racing moments for our fans, which has always been our highest priority since the sport was founded in 1948, France said in a statement. One concession NASCAR is making as part of the settlement is evergreen charters, according to a joint statement from NASCAR, 2351 Racing, and Front Row Motorsports that Jeff Gluck of The Athletic posted on X. Before the antitrust case, the charters, which guarantee teams a spot in the Cup Series, races, and a portion of NASCAR's income, were subject to renegotiation. The financial terms of the settlement are confidential and will not be released, according to a joint statement. Jessica Korda playing, but as a mom, won't be LPGA full-timer, from Beth Ann Nichols. For the first time in more than 2.5 years, Jessica Korda has an LPGA tee time. The 32-year-old mom returns to competition this week at the Grant Thornton Invitational, an unofficial mixed team event that's not too far from her South Florida home. "I proposed to Bud like 4 months ago," Korda joked of asking longtime family friend Bud Cauley to partner with her at Tiburon Golf Club in Naples, Florida. They are one of 16 teams in the third edition of the Grant Thornton, a 3-day event with a purse of $4 million. Teams play a scramble on Friday, December 12th, and then foursomes followed by a modified 4-ball over the weekend. A 6-time winner on the LPGA, Korda was on medical leave for a back injury before she got pregnant with her first child, Grayson, who arrived in February 2024. Korda last played in a tour event in May 2023 when she withdrew after the first round of the Cognizant Pounders Cup. During the extended break, Korda returned to the tour from time to time in a media capacity or with a sponsor. She also came out to support her younger sister, Nellie. "We played our first practice round on Tuesday in a couple of years. It's so nice," said Nellie, who is teaming up with Denny McCarthy this week. "Obviously, she's been out a couple times here and there and throughout the years, but I'm excited for her to tee it up this week and to kind of feel the nerves back. I hope she just has fun and keeps it kind of light." When asked how motherhood had changed her perspective, Jessica said she won't return to the LPGA in a full-time capacity. If she were to come back in 2026, it wouldn't be until mid-March, she said, which allows plenty of time to adjust based on what happens this week. "It's a lot tougher managing a schedule. Like I'm always late no matter what," said Korda. "I was never late. I was like clockwork. I was out 2 hours before. Now, just like managing him and then also trying to get ready for me, I mean, I'm on a foam roller and he's half on top of me or balls are flying at my face. Just a little bit more chaotic than it was before, but it's way more fun than it was before." Nellie Korda and McCarthy are one of 12 new teams at this week's event, though the pair did partner 3 years ago at the QBE Shootout, where Korda joined Lexi Thompson as the only female to have played the typically all-male event. The Grant Thornton replaced the QBE in 2023. McCarthy, 32, said he picked up some tips from Nellie back then. "This place has some nasty into-the-grain shots, and her short game really showed off that week," said McCarthy. "I feel like I kind of stole a couple of her little techniques that she uses on her short game that I can kind of use to this day. So thank you." Past champions in the Grant Thornton field include inaugural winners Lydia Ko and Jason Day, as well as the 2024 champs Patty Tavakanit and Jake Knapp. Jessica Korda and Cauley are one of 2 all-rookie teams in the field. Former Florida State standouts Lottie Wood and Lou Clanton will also debut in Naples. Both Wood, 21, and Clanton, 22, were the number 1 amateurs in the world during their time at FSU. "We probably know each other the most out of all the teams out there," Wood said of the event's youngest duo. Penn State's elongated search maybe landed best hire from Paul Meyerberg. Matt Campbell might have been Penn State's pick all along. After making the decision to fire former coach James Franklin at the midseason point, with the Nittany Lions on a 3-game losing streak and the year slipping away, athletic director Pat Kraft reportedly reached out to an individual believed to have the ear of the Iowa State coach. But Kraft, who ran the search without an outside firm or committee, apparently failed to reach the right person, and the attempt at making contact never reached Campbell. Months later, after one of the most scrutinized coaching searches in recent Power 4 history, Kraft made a second run at Campbell, this time reaching the right intermediary, and found a candidate receptive to the Nittany Lions' interest. "It's a dream come true for me," Campbell said at his introductory press conference. "Matt Campbell is one of the most respected coaches in the country, and he has earned that," said Kraft. "Matt Campbell is Penn State, hard-nosed, humble, relentless, a developer of young men, and he's built for championships." Under pressure to make the right hire. Before reaching this point, hiring one of college football's most well-regarded figures, one who rebuffed countless opportunities over the years to remain at Iowa State, Penn State faced the public embarrassment of seeing multiple established Power 4 head coaches parlay the opening into lucrative contract extensions. For Kraft, there was also a leaked audio recording of a team meeting, called at the players' request, that included potshots at Oregon, Michigan, and the way the previous staff had used name, image, and likeness. At the same time, the school watched as Franklin landed at Virginia Tech and quickly flipped verbal commitments from the Nittany Lions' depleted recruiting class, which included just 2 signees during the early period. If able to look past the 54-day period between Franklin's dismissal and Campbell's hiring, Penn State did achieve the end goal of hiring a proven Power 4 commodity, who won at an unmatched rate with the Cyclones and could be even more effective with his new school's deeper resources. But it's impossible to ignore the winding path from the end of one coaching tenure to the start of another, one that Kraft said at Campbell's press conference could be a Netflix documentary at some point. In part because of the dramatic search, Campbell will face immediate pressure to reverse the Nittany Lions' one-year swoon and bring the program back into Big Ten and college football playoff contention. Failing to do so would almost assuredly cost Kraft his job. "If I don't get this right, my career is over," he said in audio from the league team meeting. "Understand that. If I don't hire the right person, my career is over. So it's very serious to me." Coaching search got off to a slow start. The decision to fire Franklin came down to mismatched personalities, stubbornness, and a significant difference of opinion over how the Nittany Lions should allocate NIL funding. Kraft ranked in the top 4 nationally. Unlike many programs, Penn State had chosen a spread the wealth tack in NIL, with most players receiving a relatively equal share, instead of the typical top-down funding that pays an established starter more than, say, a freshman backup. There was also a sense from the start of Penn State's search that personality would matter nearly as much as proven production as a college coach. That's why one of the Nittany Lions' initial targets was third-year Nebraska coach Matt Rhule, who played linebacker for Joe Paterno from 1994 to 1997, worked under Kraft as the head coach at Temple, and is such good friends with Kraft that the two and their families have vacationed together in the off-season. But less than 3 weeks after Franklin's dismissal, Rhule recommitted to Nebraska with a 2-year extension that bumped up his buyout to $15 million, effectively taking him off the market. This same scene would be repeated over and again for well over a month. Rhule was one of 2 primary candidates right off the bat. The other was Indiana's Curt Cignetti, a miracle worker who transformed the Hoosiers into a powerhouse and is seen by some coaches as the closest thing in the sport currently has to the next Nick Saban. Amid this interest, Indiana handed Cignetti an 8-year, $93 million extension that made him one of the highest-paid coaches in the country, with an annual average salary of approximately $11.6 million. At least 7 other sitting college coaches fielded interest from Penn State and were either extended by their current program, like Rule and Cignetti, or opted instead for a different Power 4 opening. There was Georgia Tech coach Brent Key, who agreed last week to a 5-year extension with the Yellow Jackets. Former James Madison coach Bob Chesney was another trendy contender amid the Duke's unexpected march to the playoff. But the Pennsylvania native accepted the position at UCLA, taking him off the Nittany Lions board. Also signing new extensions during the stretch were Vanderbilt's Clark Lee, hiring another Vanderbilt coach after Franklin might have been a non-starter anyway, and Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz. Another option was interim coach Terry Smith, who, like many interim promotions, was said to be the favorite of current and ex-Penn State players. But while Smith did an admirable job getting the Nittany Lions in the postseason and nearly pulled off a mammoth upset of Indiana, he was always seen as a last resort option. Takes PR hit with some swings and misses. 3 other denials made Kraft and the search a national story, especially as other mid-season openings, such as LSU and Florida, hired current playoff coaches in Lane Kiffin and Tulane's John Sumrall, respectively. The school had zeroed in on second-year Texas A&M coach Mike Elko, who was born in New Jersey, played at the University of Pennsylvania, and spent the first decade of his career working on the East Coast. Elko's focus on toughness, his perennially strong defenses, and his 35-15 mark over 4 years as a college coach seemed to make him a dream candidate. With the Aggies unbeaten and making a run at the SEC crown, however, Elko removed himself from consideration. That led Kraft and Penn State into an awkward dance with 2 final Power 4 coaches who seemed poised to accept the offer before backing out, all while details of the previously leak-free search began to burst onto national headlines. Late last month, discussions with BYU coach Kalani Sitake had advanced to the point where Sitake seemed highly likely to be the Nittany Lions hire. He had even spoken with potential assistants and planned how Penn State's roster would look in his first year, according to reporting by the Center Daily Times in State College, Pennsylvania. This mutual interest unraveled yet again, with a major BYU booster, Crombie co-founder and CEO Jason McGowan, spearheading an increased financial commitment to Sitake and more funding for NIL and his coaching and support staffs. It was time to quit all the drama, Sitake said in early December. Penn State's search then turned to Louisville's Jeff Brom, who previously worked at Purdue and is known for his coaching chops on offense and development of quarterbacks. For one last time, an established coach rejected the Nittany Lions' attention. Brom told Louisville last week that he would be staying with the program. Kraft shifted to assistants or unemployed former coaches. One fired New York Giants coach Brian Daboll, though those discussions gained little traction. Penn State also evaluated Ohio State defensive coordinator Matt Patricia, another former NFL coach, and former Notre Dame offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, who currently holds the same position with the Cleveland Browns. Matt Campbell and Penn State finally connect. Campbell still loomed as a candidate. After failing to reach him in the wake of Franklin's firing, Penn State was able to begin conversations with Campbell in early December, according to ESPN. Less than a week later, he was introduced as Penn State's 5th full-time coach since 1950. All's well that ends well, maybe, and all will be forgiven if the Kraft and Campbell partnership results in Penn State's first national championship since 1986. And those will be the expectations. Every game Campbell coaches, especially early in his tenure, could feel like a referendum on his tenure. Kraft's future as an athletic director in the state of a program dinged by tumultuous and often chaotic search. I know this. It's my responsibility to each and every one of you, every single step of the way, to link arms with you, to unify us, and to continue to push this program to the greatest heights it's ever seen, Campbell said. I know what I'm inheriting and what my responsibility is. To be honest with you, to link arms with every one of our lettermen, former players, and to unify this football program into the greatest football power in the country. I can't wait for that opportunity. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for December 12th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 10 of Boat Baby by Vicki Nguyen. Following that, at 3 o'clock is the New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of this morning's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading serves people who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. From its broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, just north of Clinton Street. Almost 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those unable to read printed matter on their own. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. Are you facing challenges with vision loss and need help with your smartphone, sending emails, navigating the internet, and staying connected with your family? VIA, Visually Impaired Advancement, is offering free classes for seniors weekly at multiple locations with free assistance for your smartphone, email, and internet skills. There's a new session every week, and it rotates between the South Towns and the North Towns. It's at your local Erie County libraries and at 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. For more information, call Elhana Porter at 716-888-4632. Again, that's 716-888-4632. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, books, and other printed matter. People who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula are provided special reading radios. This year, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service marks almost 40 years on the air. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Service studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service website is nfradioreading.org. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading